Hello everyone, it's SketchUp versus AutoCAD. It's our masterclass on how to know which one to choose if you're an interior designer or architect. So in this session, we're going to answer the big question regarding which CAD program is better for your career. And we're going to just assess the benefits and downsides of each of these programs and basically analyze these against maybe your career goals to see which ones make more sense for you. So the aim of this session is to give you a clear direction straight away. Let's start with an overview of SketchUp. So that's what we're looking at here. You can see here, this is one of my models. It's a project, it's a commercial project in Plymouth in the UK, and it's quite a large model. So this was, it has been built, and this was this was the model I used to present the information for this project. So what are some of the upsides of SketchUp? Well, it's got an easy user interface. So you can see here around the edges, these are my tools. It allows me to set my views quite quickly. So if I went to a top view or a axonometric view or an elevational view, I could quickly switch my views quite quickly without having to type any commands. You can see here I've on the right hand side here we've got some more kind of tabs. I've actually set my own views here because I was using these as sections and elevation drawings for my presentation. You can see here that one looks a bit more technical, but that's my elevation B. Elevation A actually goes in the other direction, so that's currently set at B. So another one is section C, and you can see here we're just going through, and this is how I was presenting my information. That one was just a set view for my client. This is just an up view, just showing the floor plan. There's 2 floors, a mezzanine floor, and the ground floor under there. You can see here it is quite a large model. So for usually quite complex models, they might be a little bit slow. But actually this one, considering the size of the project, isn't it isn't problematic, I suppose is what I'm getting at. It does everything I need it to do. It takes beautiful sections for me, and it's something that has been very, very useful for this project. So even for a large project, I find that SketchUp is absolutely fine. In fact, when I used to work designing hotels, we used to do master plans of cities, and we used SketchUp for those, which is I think back now and I feel that's nuts, but it really is an absolutely fantastic application. And the size of the model doesn't really matter. I think it's fair to say that I am using the pro version here, so that is important to note. But uh, I think there are obviously a lot of limitations with the free version, but you could still build this model in the free version, which is just wild. Especially once you start comparing that against AutoCAD, that will start to, I think, it'll show you how fantastic, I suppose, SketchUp really is. So, what is the benefit of SketchUp? Well, the reality is it is really quick and easy to use and learn. So, for example, if I just wanted to start drawing a three-dimensional model, all of a sudden, I'm really quickly able to just start manipulating 3D geometry so quickly. And the way that I maneuver in, out, pan, rotate, this is so intuitive that it feels, I don't even think when I'm doing it, I'm just literally rotating, zooming in, having a look around, and it just feels so organic when I'm working in the program. So you kind of can lose yourself in your drawing, which is really, really great. And that I think is one of the best things about SketchUp. Not only is it fast, um, but it's it's just easy to grasp because it is so simple. And I suppose again that is the downside. Let me just redraw that geometry because if now I just deleted that, you'll see that inside this geometry it's actually empty. That can be to your disadvantage when you're drawing, and especially at the outset, if you potentially make a mistake with some of this this geometry, and you feel like, little mistakes that you can't really know if you're a beginner. But these were the things that obviously we cover in our SketchUp course, so you can overcome those quite quickly. So these are SketchUp is fantastic for um, really quick conceptual designs and client presentations. Component libraries are free. So in the 3D warehouse, you can search such a huge amount of uh, um, well, blocks and things that you can use. So you really are not limited uh, by components and adding things into your model. And of course, you can build your own. So you could create your own people, you could create your own furniture, and not import them. You could just build everything from scratch. So that is a real bonus, of course. So let's have a look at the the layout program that comes with SketchUp Pro. And this was an add-on that was added to SketchUp when, um, well, quite a while now, but it's an add-on that allows you to create the layout of your drawings. So, for example, here is my section B again. This is the layout for that project. And as you can see here, this if I double click onto this um, drawing, this is, and I'll just rotate it a little bit to show you, you'll see that this is in fact a link directly to my model. So I can set this scene here and change uh, the, the scenes in that model. I could change it to a different section if I wanted to. And these, we can set the scale. So these are to scale. These can be used as construction drawings. So obviously, the information isn't at construction level, but if you wanted to, you could present this as a technical drawing, for example. So the limitations that I suppose most people say come with SketchUp, I think these days don't exist anymore. They used to be more in comparison than today. So today, I think it's a really fantastic program. It does really genuinely get better and better every year when they update it. So I suppose the beauty of having layout. I mean, layout has its issues. I'm not going to lie, but it is still a really great addition to have to be able to present the information in a technical way. Um, Here, as you can see, something that I'll show you in a minute that isn't that easy to do with AutoCAD is to um, have not only different views, we can have different views in the layout of AutoCAD, but to have the 3D view, which I think is really, really beautiful because I can have a technical drawing and an, a perspective drawing, which obviously isn't to scale, in on the same page. Just I think which is more relevant for interior design because it allows you to communicate an idea a little bit more clearly, which is exactly what we're aiming to do with our drawing in the first place. So the fact that we can do very specific things and the flexibility of just setting your views uh, in 3D, in 2D is really, really the benefit I see of using SketchUp. So here's the technical drawing element of it. Let's have a look now at AutoCAD because, in comparison, AutoCAD is obviously a lot more technical. And I'm now showing you AutoCAD LT, so not the not the full version of um, AutoCAD, because the full version of AutoCAD you can do 3D drawings in, but no one does because you just use Revit. Because if you're using Revit, you're actually drawing with elements, building elements, doors, walls, windows, rather than what we've got here, which is lines. So I've drawn here with lines in the same way that I drew in SketchUp with lines, but I was building 3D geometry. Well, you can always draw in 2D geometry as well. But the intention with AutoCAD is that it was a 2D program, and it they did evolve it into a 3D program, and just was so unintuitive to use and clunky that no one ever really uses it for that. That's possibly why why Autodesk bought out Revit. They work perfectly well together, and if you're a designer or an architect who does work on larger scale buildings, for example, this would have been a good project to build in Revit if I wasn't already using SketchUp and AutoCAD. But when you compare, I suppose, the price of the Revit suite, so the full suite of Revit and AutoCAD, because they come together, and against AutoCAD LT with SketchUp, I mean, LT with SketchUp cost about £500 a year, obviously cheaper in other areas. But to have the same thing with Revit and the full suite of AutoCAD, you'd have, I think it's almost at this point in time, almost 2.5K a year. So it's like 5 times less just to have LT, which is 2D AutoCAD, and using SketchUp. So, in my opinion, I think when you're using uh, LT, you're getting the best of the program from AutoCAD because you wouldn't usually be using 3D AutoCAD anyway. Um, but I mean, I have used it, and I just you're drawing and extruding geometry in the same way that you are with SketchUp. Yet it's just so much more like there's extra steps to do the same thing that you would, and so much slower and less intuitive to navigate as well. So, this is the interface of AutoCAD. We've got a lot of options, and I think this is the beauty, but also the complexity, because if you have a look at AutoCAD, the learning curve, if you think about how long it takes to create an or how long it takes to learn AutoCAD, um, and I say this in our course, AutoCAD, if you study every day, you will learn it really well in a month. But with SketchUp, if you learn it every day, you will learn it really well within 2 weeks. So kind of your learning curve is so much steeper in AutoCAD just get drawing that first line, whereas you can get drawing that first line really, really quickly, and creating geometry in SketchUp a lot faster. So this is obviously the same project that I used for that I showed you in SketchUp. So that was the SketchUp model, but I did the technical drawing aspect of this project in AutoCAD. So obviously, I do the interior architecture as well as interior design. So if I was only doing the interior design, that SketchUp model would have been absolutely perfect, and I created my documentation from that. The thing about AutoCAD, and this is again a benefit but also to its detriment, can be that the it's it really is a precise tool. So it is really great for precision drawing. So if I wanted to draw to the absolute millimeter, well, I do draw to the millimeter, but for example, if I zoom in here, you can see that okay, that looks like it is joining. Let's try and find something that isn't. It's usually when let's go up to this corner somewhere here. Okay, cool. So you can see here I've got the existing line of the building, and something like this you can get really hung up on where things aren't meeting. So, for example, where my drawing was overlaid with the existing structural drawing. So things like this. I mean, no one's ever going to see this with the human eye, and this would never be an issue in in real life. But because I can zoom right in into like this is like point of a millimeter, you can see that these lines aren't exactly touching, and that's really frustrating. And you can just waste your whole life trying to fix these issues um, in AutoCAD. So these are kind of the not limitations, but because of the precision, because it is so accurate, that can be to your detriment. You can just get sidetracked trying to fix all the errors in the drawing, which can create a lot of bugs as well. especially when you're sharing drawings across platforms. So, one of the beauties of this is you can see here, I've got a lot of layers, and this is something I absolutely love because, yes, you do have a lot of layers, or you can use your tags in SketchUp, but the way that we draft, usually, you will have so many layers on top of each other. And in order to start clearing your drawing, in order to focus on one area of the drawing, is you can um, obviously just get rid of those layers and then work on a particular area. So I could just come over here and work on the bar, for example, and then, or just like hot and cold water supply. And then I can turn back on all of my layers and on my sheets. So, for example, this was the general arrangement plan. So, uh, over here on my layout. So this is what it looks like. This is on the layout. So the way AutoCAD works is you can see here on the bottom, I could just click here and that's my layout. I could create a viewport and see straight into my model in the same way that SketchUp layout does. But because, as you can see here, I've got a lot of drawings in my drawing set for this project. So I basically just opened up this one and I could create a different, so this is a sheet set, and this is a different way of creating my drawings. But what I love is that it makes it possible for me to obviously see all my drawings like this, which is really, really useful, especially when you're on a project where there are literally hundreds and hundreds of drawings. So this is the layout. This is the general arrangement plan. So this is where obviously I want to show things like the grid lines, the sections where they're taken, things like the elevation stars, the areas, some uh, uh, other information. Maybe, perhaps if we don't have a setting out drawing, that could be setting out. So if I just press print, you'll see one of the beauties here is just seeing the way that I can make every single line different and manipulate every single hatch uh, to my advantage. I can make things in color. I can do a thin line. You can see here there's a thin dotted line. There's a thicker grey line. There's a nice thick black line, a thin black line. Every single line I can control in this. And that is the beauty of AutoCAD, because when you're communicating so much information, it can be really confusing, not only for you when you're trying to figure out what it is that you're doing, but also for the people that you're trying to communicate the information to. So, this is probably the reason why I still to this day use AutoCAD so much for my projects, especially for the 2D working out and technical drawing, mainly because of the way that I can manipulate those layers and just get them literally to perfection. In a way, you can. So, if I drew a line, let's go to layout. If I drew a line here in layout, I can manipulate this line. So, for example, I do a line, I select that line, and then I can come here under shape style and just go, well, I want to create that as a thicker line. So I can create this line and manipulate it, but not to the extent that I can in AutoCAD. The I mean, it's pretty good, but in terms of the fills, so for example, if I did do a fill, in terms of the fills, just the amount of options that I have, the flexibility that I have isn't in the to the same quality that I can in SketchUp as I could in AutoCAD. So that is probably the main biggest benefit of using AutoCAD as opposed to SketchUp. But in a way, if you're drawing in 3D anyway, it just feels like why would you draw things twice? You can see here it might be a little bit delayed because what I have done is, in fact, um, included my SketchUp elevations into AutoCAD. So usually I would have just redrawn all of these elevations if I was not using my 3D model. But because I already had drawn everything, I literally exported out the imagery and also the lines. So I exported them both separately. I could have just exported the lines of that section, for example, and then imported uh, or just use the lines without the images. Actually, let me see if I can unload that. Well, let me first of all show you. So they are all of the sections. It is a bit slow because they're obviously lots of images, lots of image files in this AutoCAD file. And again, AutoCAD wasn't designed to have beautiful images inside it. It's a technical drawing program with lines. So that is what we're what it's really good at doing, manipulating those lines to give you all of the information that you kind of need with lines or vectors. But whereas here, I've included these images from my SketchUp model. So I'm just going to unload these. Sorry, this is the is it this one? Section A. Might take a while to do, but when I'm unloading, you can see that uh, actually it's not doing it, but when you unload, it will work a little bit faster, and that is kind of the benefit of using XREFs. So actually, I'll just unload the whole thing, and then you can see. So that drawing of the sections is an extra drawing that I've imported to into my AutoCAD drawing. So if this is how we use AutoCAD, it's more 2D rather than a 3D program, I think is the main thing to remember. And SketchUp is designed to be a really quick way to draw in 3D. But I suppose if you're working with other if you're working already with engineers and other architects or a big group of professionals on a project, it is highly likely that they're going to want DWG files. The thing is, even if you don't use AutoCAD, you can still export a DWG file, which is exactly what I did for those elevations. So, for example, I went to, let's go to that elevation B. So you can look at this elevation and then you can go up to File, Export, and I can export a 2D graphic. So I can export either a 2D graphic in, you can see here, as a JPEG, so as an image file, which I did, but then I also did it as a DWG. So I actually exported both. So that's you can see there. It's an option. So it's not limiting in any way. In fact, every new release of SketchUp gets better and better. And I suppose the benefit of AutoCAD is every new release doesn't really change, which is kind of what you want if you're using the program, um, especially for such an extended period of time, um, like I have. But the benefits, I suppose, are things that it is for technical drawing, and that is to your advantage. Whereas for SketchUp, you're literally drawing in 3D straight away. Of course, there's the argument if you're using the Pro version and you're using Revit, you would just draw in Revit. But in, uh, I think, I mean, maybe I'll do another video about Revit versus SketchUp. And the thing is, they're kind of incomparable because if you're drawing architecture, Revit makes sense. But if you're drawing interiors and working more with finishes, which is what is really the luxury here that I've got, is these finishes I can literally import. a, a well, an image file, which is what we're using as a not a hatch, but like a file that we're using for to show the finishes. So these finishes I can import and I can make every single thing look exactly like I want it to so that I can make really, really good decisions about it. If I was to do the same, for example, in Revit and AutoCAD, it just wouldn't, it would firstly slow down the model. In Revit, you have limited capacity to really change. I mean, you can, but it, the way to do it is so much more not time consuming. Well, I suppose it is time consuming because you've got all the attributes that you have to change. So, in a way, I find that SketchUp is just it's designed to draw really, really quickly, and that is um, the beauty of it, and manipulate it in a way that you can make custom shapes so quickly and easily. In contrast, if you were using AutoCAD in 2D or even in 3D Revit, you would the learning curve is so much steeper. It would just take so much longer to get to the same level of detail, and obviously, the cost of the program is just um, it's just so inhibitive, especially for smaller practices. So I feel like, I mean, the forefront winner really is SketchUp for interior design. If you're doing interior architecture like myself or architecture, you really have no option but to also use AutoCAD most of the time because you will be working and converting files a lot. But again, you could use online converters. Like for example, um, let's just go here. One thing that I used to use um, an external kind of tool for, like I used to purchase something called PDF to DWG. This is a long time ago. Now you can attach a PDF, obviously, into your um, straight into your model, put it into scale, include it in here, and now you can see here that this is a PDF in my model. It could be someone else's drawing, it could be my drawing. Obviously, copyright might be an issue there, so make sure you look at that. But this is my own drawing of another project, and this could be uh, a someone like an old drawing of yours that you might have lost, or it could be the engineer's drawing and he's using another program, or she is using another program, and they might give you the PDF file. Sometimes maybe they're on holidays, they won't be able to give you the actual file if they or they're using another program, they can't get you the right file. They might just give you the PDF and you can convert it straight away. So I can just go PDF import, select that, select the area that I want to import, and then I can just attach that. And all of a sudden, that PDF that was not editable is now editable as lines in my drawing, which is pretty brilliant. So you couldn't actually do that in SketchUp, but what you could do is just use an external PDF to DWG converter. I think there's free ones online these days, and then do that as well. Obviously, that doesn't always work because if it's an image that's been converted into PDF, that's not going to work. It needs to be like vector files, which are lines that can be edited. So the way the file was originally converted is important. But you can see with that one that worked quite well, and all of a sudden I can use and manipulate the lines within this model. I don't obviously have the rest of the model because that's the boundary of the drawing, which was the page of the sheet of paper. But in some instances where, I mean, for example, I lost drawings once on it was a long time ago, but I lost drawings once on a drive, and an old project came back around, and I was able to revive that project just by reusing an old PDF that I had. So that was really, really useful. Again, in SketchUp, you don't have that kind of possibility, and usually. Um, you can obviously import, like how I was going to export in 2D, you can import a 2D model or other SketchUp models. So that is an option here. So let's have a look down here. You've got AutoCAD files that you can import. Obviously, you can't do this in the free version of SketchUp, but at the same time, uh, you could build a model like this and then present it in another application, which is just sensational that you can even do that for free, which is just amazing. But obviously, with the pro version of SketchUp, you do get the layout, which is really, it's very useful and it complements that. It complements SketchUp and makes it a full usable technical program as opposed to AutoCAD, which is literally a 2D program that you're limited to in quite a few ways. But um, when it comes to the detail, and if you are very specific about the well, how accurate your lines are. And it's not that SketchUp isn't accurate. I think that is a big misconception. It is accurate, but because of the drawing process, because we use it from concept to detailed design, then to technical design, and it goes through all those stages, you can have errors with the model. And I suppose that's like with any drawing. It can happen in 2D, it can happen in 3D. So you've always got to be looking out for your drawings and how you're creating that. So, the only other thing I wanted to cover was things like text. You can create text styles here. You've got a lot more variation for text styles. You can edit them. You can create such really fantastic options and almost like your own font in AutoCAD. Whereas again, in SketchUp, that is quite limited. Obviously, we don't want to be using SketchUp for uh, um, writing and fonts and dimensions. You would do that really in layout because it's just SketchUp isn't designed for that. Um, what's another final thing in SketchUp? I suppose. Sorry, in AutoCAD, you do. The program's been around for so long, so you do have so many free CAD blocks online. But I suppose the same is true for SketchUp these days. There's so many, and more people are creating blocks online. They're called groups in SketchUp, but uh, you can get so much free content for both applications that I suppose that it de- that isn't really a downside of either of them. Uh, I think overall, SketchUp is the winner because there's a free version that allows you to learn the program so quickly, and it's also quick to use. But when you're looking at AutoCAD, you might be forced to use AutoCAD, and that's typically why people are still using it all because you've been using it for so long, um, and the people that you're working with are using it. That might be one of the reasons why you want to stick with it, or you're doing interior architecture and architecture where the precision element of what you're drawing is important, and you really need that those layers of editability that you just don't get with SketchUp because, for example, layers. I mean, I can even in my sheets and in my layouts, I can create set views for all of my layers. Whereas uh, I could do that here, but they wouldn't remember them, if that makes sense. So it's you would have to create your tags and then to create the same level of complexity with my layers in AutoCAD here in SketchUp, I would have to create so many more tags to try and get that visibility to work for me. It just wouldn't be worth it. So that's probably the main reason, but it's really just a technical reason for complexity. How long does it typically take to learn SketchUp compared to AutoCAD? Well, um, It can take, well, as I mentioned in my courses, so SketchUp usually takes about half the time to learn than AutoCAD would. So AutoCAD in our program, I usually say it takes around about a month to really get to grips with it, and that's just doing a lesson a day. So that could be, a 15, a 5, 10, or 15-minute lesson each day. But if you were using it every day, it would take you a month. Um, and that's all you've got on the free. I think it's the free, um, uh, uh, like the free download, so that you could try and learn it in a month, and you would learn it in a month with a good teacher. Whereas with SketchUp, it'll definitely take half that time, again, with a good teacher. So, we've got all the tools, templates, and things that we provide in our courses. It will be really, really quick, and you'll within 2 weeks. I mean, my mentees usually learn it within 1 week, but, I'm being a little bit more conservative here and saying 2 weeks because, uh, to get it to a level where you can present information. I would say so. 3D modeling, actually, you'll learn quite quickly, but when you're presenting information, that comes with complexity, with scaling and things like that. Is AutoCAD LT a good option for designers, or do I need the full version of AutoCAD? So, um, the full version, as I mentioned, will come with Revit. So you would just use Revit rather than full version of AutoCAD because, like I mentioned, 3D in AutoCAD just isn't very good. It's just not intuitive. It's clunky. The maneuverability is not. It just doesn't work very well. It's a long learning curve. So I would suggest that LT, if you're using it for 2D drawing, is absolutely fine. And I do obviously large scale buildings. This is a 600-meter squared building, so it's a large building, um, and it was quite complex. So I can do this in LT, and actually, most of the design firms that I worked in, only one person at the firm ever had the full version, and everyone else was using LT anyway. So I do believe that for the majority of projects, the vast majority of projects, unless you're obviously working in a huge firm, LT will be fine. But even so, when I worked doing hotels, we were all working on LT, and we were using SketchUp. So, which is probably why I still use both applications as I do today, because that was pretty much the way I was taught. So let's leave it at that. Hopefully, that gives you a clear indication of which program feels right for you. Obviously, we do have courses on these on InterDesign. So we've got the AutoCAD course and we've got the SketchUp course, and both are specifically for beginners. And you've got templates there to help you all the way through.